Today, I'm going to share with you some facts you may not realize about cancer, why cancer is my passion and my purpose, and perhaps more relevantly for you, what options are available when it comes to cancer treatment. This is very important because most, if not many, if not most people are simply unaware of all the options that are available to them. And when I say options, I'm not going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of specific treatments, no time for that right now. And I'm even going to be talking about things beyond my own treatments. What I am going to be discussing is overall treatment approaches that can have higher success rates than conventional alone. So by the end of this talk, you'll have a better understanding of what this entails, and perhaps we'll see cancer in a whole new, or at least more hopeful, light. And a lot of the things I'll be discussing are good for cancer prevention as well. So, a little bit about me, so I can assure you of some of my qualifications in this manner. I have a doctorate in naturopathic medicine. I have a master's of science in integrative medicine research. I was a practicing licensed physician in Oregon for several years with the same rights and privileges as a medical doctor, basically. Then I moved to Florida, where the laws are a bit different. So here I operate as a naturopathic health consultant, where I've been doing so for 2 to 3 years, for 7+ years experience. And I also have a plethora of certifications in various healing modalities, mostly energy work and such. Too many to get into right now, save that for later. And I'm a transformational life coach, and my name is Dr. Lisa Matejka. So, cancer is incredibly common. You may have cancer yourself. You certainly may know someone who has cancer, or certainly have known someone at some point who has had cancer. Despite advances in modern medicine, cancer cases continue to be on the rise and in fact are fast encroaching upon and soon overtaking cardiovascular disease as the #1 cause of death in Western civilizations, and in fact have already done so in Canada, where cancer is the #1 leading cause of death, beating heart attack and stroke. And not to scare you, but in more modern industrialized nations, there is an additional 2% increase in cancer cases each year, so that it's predicted by 2040, 1 in 2 adults will have cancer if we do nothing different. Perhaps we need another way. So what typically happens when someone is diagnosed with cancer? If they qualify, they may get the surgery, which totally can spread it. So they'll be recommended chemo and or radiation. And chemo and or radiation, of course, can be standalone treatments as well. Perhaps endocrine therapy, perhaps experimental drugs, all of which can have debilitating side effects and really an indiscriminate blanket of toxicity for the entire body. And what about the effectiveness rate? Let's just say it can be better. Despite the tens of millions or more of dollars spent each year on cancer research, the efficacy rate is practically unchanged. Again, perhaps we need a better way. Cancer is not going away. In fact, like I said, cases are rising. It's happening in younger and younger people. Now, I'm not saying don't do conventional treatment. I'm just saying there is another way. There are other ways that can be used alongside conventional treatment or as a standalone. And I'll share some of that with you today. But first, a little bit about my story. So it was Valentine's Day of 2009 that my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And as you may potentially know, that is one of the worst cancer diagnoses you can get. Low survival rate, high mortality rate. So at that time, I was just dipping my toes in natural healing. Definitely wasn't considering it a career. I was a zoology major, and it wasn't exactly a passion. It was more like a side interest and hobby, studying herbs and natural healing and things. But intuitively, I knew there was another way. I just knew it. I just wasn't exactly sure what that way was, and I tried to figure it out. I even recommended some things here and there, some of which he actually did, but it was too little, too late. And January of the following year, he was no longer with us. So I basically made it my life's work, mission, and purpose to find this other way. And what I found is there's not just one other way. There's many other ways that can be very, very effective. It just all depends. And I would like to share some of that with you today. So, what is naturopathic medicine and how can it be helpful in those who have cancer? How can it be helpful for you if you have cancer? Well, let's first define naturopathic medicine. Some people use natural medicine and naturopathic medicine interchangeably. And just to be clear, natural medicine is like an overarching blanket umbrella term that includes anything that could be considered natural medicine. You know, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, the traditional folk medicines, also naturopathic medicine, and more advanced, more modern medicines, biofield therapy, frequencies, magnets, basically anything that can be considered natural. Naturopathic medicine specifically applies to diet and nutrition, supplements, nutraceuticals, herbs, botanicals, homeopathy, prevention and lifestyle coaching, mind-body medicine, how the mind affects the body, hydrotherapy, which is a traditional form of water therapy, physical medicine, which is basically similar to things like a chiropractor would do, and IV therapy. And yes, that refers to intravenous nutrients and things. So how can these things be helpful if you have cancer? Well, many ways. First, I'd like to say, whether somebody decides to do conventional treatment or not, I believe is and should be their choice, preferably an informed, educated choice, not thrust upon them by doctors and family. And so it's not my place to convince you of or deter you from conventional medicine, but it is my place to offer options. So for those that decide to go the conventional route, naturopathic medicine is a beautiful addition, wonderful support. It is going to protect the most susceptible organs and tissues. So for example, if you're doing radiation therapy, there's certain areas that are typically targeted. We can protect these areas in advance and throughout the course of the treatment. When it comes to chemotherapy drugs, different drugs have different toxicities for different parts of the body. For example, some are more cardiotoxic to the heart, some are more toxic to the eyes, some are more toxic to the kidneys. And we know this, so we can protect those organs and tissues in advance and during the course of the treatment, which obviously is a good thing. We're mitigating organ damage. We're preventing organ damage. And then there's side effects. I think we all can agree how horrible side effects can potentially be for the cancer patient. So we can mitigate these side effects, thus improving quality of life, which is going to have a cascading effect to all other areas of health. And it allows the person to undergo their full course of treatment. Sometimes their symptoms get so bad, the side effects get so bad that they have to stop treatment in the middle. And that's obviously not perhaps the best thing for the cancer. So yeah, naturopathic medicine can help with that. And did you know naturopathic medicine can even be synergistic with conventional medicine, meaning it can actually help make the conventional medicine more targeted, thereby making it more effective and less detrimental. So it truly is a win-win situation. And my patients and clients that go this route are just so thankful to have this type of support, and they say they don't know what they would have done without it, and they don't want to know. I mean, yes, they may have some fatigue, some brain fog, and some minor symptoms, but they're not suffering the way many people are suffering, and they're recovering much faster. So then there is the people that choose not to do conventional treatment. And for these people, our approach may look a little differently. It may be a little more aggressive. We will definitely do some things to target that specific type of cancer. There's all sorts of things that can be done. But there's also some general themes I like to hit regardless of what the cancer type is. So for example, things like cleanses and detoxes. This is very important. You know, we live in a toxic world. There are toxins in our food, toxins in our water. Even if we drink good water, we're bathing typically in not so great water. There's toxins in the air, whether it's the outside air or the inside air. There's toxins in the fabric of our homes. There's toxins in the products we use. Not to scare you, our bodies can typically handle this if we cleanse them. So how often do we clean the outside of our bodies? How often do we, hopefully, clean our homes and cars? Some more than others, sure. But how often are we cleaning the inside of our bodies? Most of us, not enough. So this is very important. Certainly this can lead to DNA damage, which can, if not causative in nature to cancer, at the very least an obstacle to cure. So we do this, and there's an art and science to these cleanses. There is a certain order to go through for targeting different organ systems. You know, you like start with colon cleanses and move to liver, gallbladder, kidney, bladder. There's a certain order. And then we're hitting on different things and not just toxins, not just heavy metal, like heavy metals is one of them, but not just toxins, but things like candida and parasites. There's different things that we're going to target. And then there's things like mitochondrial optimization. So you may recall mitochondria being the powerhouses of our cells, organelles in our cells. But it turns out there's so much more than that, and we're finding out more and more these days of just how important they are. They can act like hormones. But so there is always mitochondrial damage when there is cancer. So we can do things to optimize mitochondria, increase their integrity, health, and longevity. There's lots we can do to make the terrain, our body, the terrain, as least hospitable to cancer as possible. So, for example, like moving from an acidic to an alkaline environment, oxygenation, considering the gut and the oral microbiome, those things can affect the progression of cancer. You know, what water are we drinking? Are we getting sunlight? And yes, of course, there's diet, and there's not just one anti-cancer diet. There's many anti-cancer diets, and the one you need is going to be based on your other health conditions and history and type of cancer and all sorts of things. So it's and there's so much more. I'm just barely scratching the surface when we talk about mind-body medicine. Of course, I recommend things like meditation, mindfulness, doing things each day that bring you joy, passion, and meaning. Those are important too. And I like to do so much more. So enter energy medicine. So some of you may be quite familiar with energy medicine and some of you may not. So what do I mean by energy medicine? So we have an energy field, and I just want to be clear because I've heard of some people think this like conflicts with their religious beliefs and ideologies, and it's really not the case. In fact, there are many religious paintings that depict the energy field, including halos. But it's also not this woo-woo, new age spiritual thing. I mean, yes, it's embraced by that community, but the energy field is a very scientific, very real thing. With all the devices and instruments we have now, it is indisputable that we emit a bioelectromagnetic field. It largely comes from our heart. It also comes from our brain and really the entire body. You can't argue this, it's true. So the idea is it makes sense to work on this energy field because really, when we talk about quantum physics, wave before particle, every electron is wave before particle. So what happens in the energy field, it's here first and then it's in the body. In other words, the field is not a reflection of what's going on in the body, it's actually influencing what's going on in the body. So if we influence the energy field, it's really smarter because we're working upstream to try to affect the body. Now I think this is the medicine of the future, and I think we're going to really be able to dial this in to really have more precise effects. But we can do general things to try to balance and harmonize this energy field. There are many modalities, disciplines, techniques to work on this energy field. For example, like I am an Asui Reiki master, Holy Fire Reiki master. I do pranic healing, thought field therapy, sound healing, tuning forks, energy code, or emotion code, body code, just certain things, but there's so many other modalities. And this is when somebody is essentially using either their own energy field or the collective energy field to influence another person's energy field. And then there's machines. There's all kinds of devices and machines that can affect people's energy field as well. And I also happen to be certified to use one of those machines. It's called a Thera wellness device. And it can actually detect one's energy field with it has these different applicators placed on different parts of the body to detect the energy field, interpret it, and then it can enhance harmonious signals, and it can wave cancel, it can wave flip, thus canceling out disharmonious signals. There's all kinds of programs. I don't have time to get into it. There's all kinds of programs and stuff it does. So yes, working on the energy field can be really helpful in many ways. At the very least, it's a really cool addition to end somebody's appointment with. I like to end people's appointments with energy work because it typically leaves people feeling very relaxed, calm, at ease, at peace, as their energy field is balanced and harmonized, which also has a cumulative effect over time. But that's not always the case. Sometimes people from energy work get very distraught, emotional, outbursts, crying. And it's because energy work can really bring stuff to the surface, because the energy field is essentially a database of information, and doing energy work can bring things to the surface that you could say are like hard truths for people, or things like repressed feelings are brought to the surface, so people have to feel these again. It's not pleasant, but this is not a bad thing. This is a very, very, very good thing, because it is these things that need to be addressed and processed in order for a true deep healing to occur. Which brings me to the next topic, which is life coaching. Mine is specifically transformational life coaching, but you've probably heard of a life coach. I mean, basically Tony Robbins coined that. They're very popular these days. Everybody has a coach. There's like a coach for like every single niche, which I think is a beautiful thing. In fact, $43 billion was spent in that industry in 2023, which I think is a beautiful thing, because it shows, for one, that people are really interested in personal growth and doing the inner work. And it also shows it's less, and it is much less taboo these days to seek out the help of a professional, or, a coach. I consider a coach a professional. It's not taboo to seek somebody out to help you with these issues. So I created, and I spent a lot of time devising a 4-month coaching program specifically for cancer patients. So how does this help? Many ways, more than what I can get into. But many integrative cancer experts and many people, including myself, agree that there's a root to the cancer that's typically not just a genetic roll of the dice, not just a bad lifestyle choice. It's usually something emotional, mental, energetic, maybe spiritual. But here's some common themes of what the true root of cancer is, because it's the body holding on to something that no longer serves. We now know that trauma is stored in the body. So a lot of times people that develop cancer have a traumatic past or some sort of trauma in their past. So this needs to truly be addressed. People think they are fine about things, but it's really not the case. It's just like more buried in the subconscious. Other common things are repressed emotions. You could say buried, trapped emotions, repressed emotions, things like grief, resentment, shame, guilt, inability to forgive somebody for something they did, inability to forgive yourself for something you did, lack of self-love. There's a lot of lack of self-love in cancer. I think to a degree, we all need help in that arena, but in some people it manifests this way. lack of self-worth, not having personal boundaries, that sort of thing. And really, you don't have to have like a traumatic past either. You know, these emotions can happen from deaths of love. I mean, that is traumatic, but like still a normal thing. Death of a loved one, breakups, or something could have happened when you were a kid that you don't even really remember, but it wired in a certain limiting belief that led to a certain behavioral pattern that became destructive over time. So it could be so many things. So part of the coaching is to get to the true root of the cancer and treat the root cause, which is a naturopathic tenet. And then there's other things that coaching does, things that make sense to most people, like working on stress management. Studies definitely show that cancer patients fare better when they have stress management practices in place. And then there's the important concept of reprogramming the subconscious mind for healing. Another way to put that is mindset. So people can consciously think that they're going to heal, but what's going on in the subconscious? We need to get the subconscious also aligned with the conscious mind for them to truly believe, for you to truly believe you can heal, because that's going to greatly increase your odds. I mean, just look no further than the placebo effect of how important mindset is. Every drug that comes on the market has to beat the placebo effect in a clinical trial. That's how strong the placebo effect is. And honestly, if you look into it, most drugs are only beating the placebo effect by a few percentage points. That's how powerful the mind is. If we think something is going to heal us, even if it's just a sugar pill, really, then it will heal us because of our mindset. So getting the mind on board, it's a little trickier when it comes to a situation like this, but it's definitely doable. There's many practices, and there's so much more we get into. I just can't get into it all. So I was having good results with doing naturopathic medicine and energy medicine, but there was that piece missing, the emotional piece, the more diving deep piece, you know? And once I added this in, wow, really profound results. I mean, people sent to hospice to die that then pull themselves out and heal themselves in miraculous ways, even without conventional treatment. And it is always you healing yourself. But I have been credited with providing people with the tools, techniques, support to bring out your own healing abilities. So I consider this the divine trifecta of healing for cancer: naturopathic medicine, energy medicine, and transformational life coaching. You know, and if you're doing this instead of conventional treatment, it's considered alternative medicine. If you're doing this alongside with conventional treatment, then it's considered complementary medicine, as they're complementing each other, or integrative medicine, as it's a coordinated approach. But, you know, I like to work with people in an individualized, teamwork-based way, of course. So all these things are going to vary. You know, not everybody is ready for the coaching. You have to go deep and be vulnerable. So if people just want naturopathic medicine, we'll just do naturopathic medicine. Don't have to do all of these, although it's my preference. But the important thing is to not only figure out what you need, but also what you are willing to do. Because if someone's not willing to do something, it's not going to be a good treatment plan for them. If somebody doesn't believe in something, it's also not a good treatment plan for them, as there are studies that show cancer patients fare better when they choose treatment plans they believe in, which is also another reason why it's important for you to take control and decide how you want to heal, and not just be passive and let it be thrust upon you by doctors or family. So anyways, that is pretty much it. So thank you for listening to this. I hope you found it informative. And if you would like further help, I offer free discovery sessions, and you can also sign up for my coaching program. I'll leave all that info in the description box. So with that being said, I'm Dr. Lisa Matejka of New Moon Cancer Care, wishing you all the best on your journey.